Oops. Hello, everyone. I got to turn on this light. There we go. There. Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. It is Unfound Live on Facebook or on YouTube. Yes, on YouTube. Man, I'm messing this up. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Is everybody in here? Everybody checking this out? I'm trying to see if people are finding the program. Okay, there's Jasmine. What's going on, Jasmine? And Laura. Laura got in early. And Cherie, what's going on? We'll see how many people we get tonight. You should know that just by moving from Facebook to YouTube, we doubled the viewership and the views of the video, which I guess is pretty good. Doubling is good. And it's just something that I'm going to continue to work on to try to get the numbers higher. But you can just, those numbers are all very obvious on YouTube, so you can see them. So you can see the difference between doing it on Facebook and then uploading it to YouTube and then just doing it on YouTube straight up. Stacy and Lou and Michelle is multitasking. Spectacular. And Ann and Susan, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Got a lot to talk about tonight. Let me just do something here on my other laptop. Yes, I do have two laptops. I have the laptop that I'm talking to you on right now is a Dell that I got in August of last year. My Dell that I had before that died, just like that. And then the other laptop that I use, that I used to record the program, do all my audio and everything, is actually a MacBook Pro, which I got about a year ago now. And I love it. It's great. It's great for doing audio stuff. So everybody's in here. Everybody's Kay, Clark, Kelly, I see you. I'm not going to forget you, Kelly. And Maureen, thanks for everybody for tuning in. A lot to talk about. Got a lot of questions to answer tonight already. I posted the request for questions a little earlier today than I usually do. And I got more questions. So that's good. And I think we're going to stray a little bit outside true crime to answer some of these things. So it should be fun. Like I said, for anybody just tuning in, doubled the viewership from just doing Facebook Live, which I don't know if that's what I expected. I expected it to go up. I really didn't have any forecast of the exact numbers, but it's good. I'm glad everybody could tune in. I just posted some pictures. It snowed today here, finally. The last time that it really snowed and stuck was right around when my mother was in the hospital, late November, was really the last time that we got any snow up here in Pennsylvania. But starting last night, I went to bed and the grass was green. I got up this morning and it was completely covered in snow, and it has snowed all day. And I drove my dad over to Walmart earlier this evening, and the roads, halfway they were bad, and then they got good at like different townships or something. One township got out early and got the salt on. The other one didn't. So the roads were bad part of the way, and then the rest of the way they were okay. But it is a little dicey out there. There weren't a lot of people out, and we went out around 6 o'clock or something like that. So who we got? Layla and Tiff Fuentes and Dottie and Shelly and Stacy. And it was 71 there today, Cherie. That's nice. That's nice. And Stacy, thanks for everybody tuning in. But I took some pictures. Some people wanted some pictures of what the snow looked like. And so I did that. So as you can tell, I am still up here in Pennsylvania. I'm going to be here for a couple more weeks. Something like that. Maybe not quite 2 weeks. I have something that I need to do next Thursday. So I'm going to be here for at least another 8 days. And then probably within the week after that is when I'll jump back in the car and go back to Florida. And so that we have that going on. So you'll see me here in this very same exact room this time next week. I want to talk about the Judith Emke poll. That was last Friday's episode. And it doesn't seem, it's interesting, as I talked about in that episode, that I thought that there were three choices for that disappearance that I thought were quite equal. Now, that's not the way it ended up in the poll. And in fact, a large majority of you decided that Daryl Emke is responsible for his wife's disappearance. I want you to know, makes total sense. Okay, makes total sense. You listened to the interview that I did with Judith's daughter, Darlene, and that's what a majority of you concluded. I have to say, if you're not a member of a Patreon, you should know that in my blog there, I put forth the idea that myself, I was leaning toward Pat. So this is once again a circumstance where a majority of the listeners disagree with me, which once again, I say this all the time, this comes up. Totally fine. Okay, totally fine. And that promotes free thinking. And I had some really good discussions with some of you about why I think one way and you think another way. And that's great. And I think it's great to kind of, not arguing, just discussing, having different points of view and trying to figure it all out. And in fact, I then had just a few days ago, a couple people contact me and tell me that they thought that Judith just ran off by herself. So, there were people that thought that way too. So, but still, when it came to the poll that was on in the Unfound podcast discussion group, the private group, a large majority of you decided that Daryl is the one who is responsible. So we got who we got here? Kelly. You said she walked out of work in DC and it was hailing. Well, I'd certainly prefer snow over hail. And JL Kamek, hello. Still night in South Jersey, no snow sticking yet. Well, it's been snowing here. It was cold. It was blowing. Pretty decent snowfall here. Pretty decent. And I'm not sure what it's doing out there now. When I went out, it was blowing and just coming down just a little bit. As you saw, maybe I posted a couple of those pictures in the discussion group and elsewhere that I got to work on the t-shirts this past week. And I'm finally updated again to all of the guests have at least been contacted. Some of them haven't gotten back to me yet because I need to know the size, I need to know the color, and I need to know their address to be able to send them a shirt. And once again, that is brought on by people who are supporting the program through Patreon and PayPal. Cannot thank those people enough. But of course, I've been delayed in getting to that for several reasons, but I finally got to it this past week, mainly last weekend. And so I'm just about caught up, at least telling people that, shirts are available for them for free. And most of them have gotten back to me. And so I'm happy to do that for them. And they're thrilled to get them. And they posted pictures on Facebook. And then I shared them, those pictures with the rest of you. Stephanie, what's going on? Sue says, one question, do we know where her son was, what her son's response was to her disappearance? Was just not talked about? Sue, we didn't talk about what Darlene's older brother, her half-brother technically, his response was back in 1986. That's true. But I can tell you that Darlene's sister, Teresa, and their brother both believe that their father, Daryl, is responsible. Okay. I think that Darlene, my impression, this is not her talking. This is not anybody. This is just me talking. My impression that Darlene is much more open to other possibilities. But it seems to me that her brother and sister, her half-brother, half-sister, are more set on Daryl being the one who caused Judith's disappearance. That's my impression. Nancy says 27 degrees in Charleston, West Virginia. I've been to Charleston. I went to a wedding, Nancy, I went to a wedding in Charleston, West Virginia in 1996. A good friend of mine from college got married down there. And then Joyce, what's going on, Joyce? I know you said I got to get back to Florida. I agree, Joyce. 46 in Boise. Everybody's giving their weather reports tonight. I love it. That's funny. Bobby, good to see you. Good to hear from you on Twitter today too, Bobby. Good to hear from you. And Carrie and Stacy says, I think it was the boyfriend. Once again, Judith Empke's episode. I think it was the boyfriend, just a gut feeling. Stacy, that's the way I leaned in the blog that I wrote in Patreon. And if you'd like to be a Patreon supporter, $2 a month or $5 or $10, whatever you think you can spare. And there are different levels of what you can get besides the blog. You can make a decision at patreon.com/unfound podcast to hear or read my deeper thoughts and opinions about the cases that are covered. I can assure you one thing that maybe I need to make clear. There are no facts that I withhold for the episode and then use them in the blog. Okay, I don't do that. Okay, when I do those interviews, everything that factually you need to know about a case, you learn there. On the blog that I write is just my interpretation of those facts. Okay, I don't want you to think that I'm just giving you 75% in the episode and then the rest of the story, the other 25% of the facts and everything. That's not what's happening. Everything that you need to know as the public is in the episode, and then everything that's contained in the Patreon blog is my interpretation of those facts, my opinions. Just my opinions. That's it. Michelle, you're not seeing others' comments. I don't know what to tell you about that. Thank you, Nancy. Carrie says, get the Patreon account, so worth it. Thank you. Let's answer a question, and then I need to let you know some things that are going on right now. Jasmine, I'm going to start with Jasmine's question first, and I know she's in here. She was one of the first people that got in, probably because she knew I was going to answer a question. Jasmine asked me about two particular cases. Patty Adkins, which I think is a fairly well-known case. What my opinions are on that. And then Robert Hoagland, which I know was a disappeared episode, at least within the last couple years. Patty Adkins, maybe just to remind all of you, I'm not going to go through all the facts, is the one where she worked at a Honda or Toyota plant, and it is believed she was having an affair with the guy she worked with, and he's married. And then he told her they were going to go away for a weekend, and she had to get in the bed of the truck, and then she disappeared. Okay, that is that's the Patty Adkins ones. What's my opinion on that? I don't know any more about that case than any of you. In fact, I'm sure some of you know about that case way more than I do. Okay, it's hard not to think that this married guy did it. Now I know he's still walking around a free man. And that's certainly a case I would like to cover. I'd like to put his name out there. I'd like to know more than what Disappeared covered and what's on Web Sleuths or wherever else. Would certainly love to do that. Haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. But just of the information that I know about it, it's hard not to think that he did something to her. But on the other hand, there's a reason he's still walking around a free man. I would have to know more and talking to somebody in Patty's family or something like that to kind of get the behind the scenes story of everything. So that's all I really can say about that particular case. Now, as far as Robert Hoagland, that one is a little more up in the air. Once again, that's not a case. I don't know any more about it than any of you do. Let me see what Sue says, have to say, Pat, hubby didn't have control over herself. The blog is so awesome. Patreon is well worth missing. Thank you. Thank you, Sue. Cherie says $24 a year. She's right. Stephanie says he borrowed money from her. She wanted to get paid back and was getting antsy. Stephanie says about Judith Ems. Oh, about Patty Adkins. Maybe that could be the case. Thank you, Sue. I'm not going to keep reading all these compliments to me. Thank you, Sue. Everybody who's in here live can say it. Thank you. Thanks. So as far as Robert Hoagland goes, that was one that, if you don't remember that one, that was a guy who what was it? The day he disappeared, he went to fill up the gas in his Volkswagen, and then he got a map of the eastern United States. He went home, he cut grass. His son was there. His son had some problems. The neighbor saw the two talking. And then allegedly the son went out with a Volkswagen. And when he came home later, the lawnmower was put away. The clothes that Robert had been wearing were thrown in the laundry or whatever it was, but he was gone. You hate to think that a son would do something to his father, but it's obvious that Robert Hoagland's son had issues. And in fact, days before that, Robert had gone somewhere. I mean, the son had stolen 2 laptops, and Robert was trying to get them back. So he went where the son took them, and I mean, really take, very dangerous area. I'm sure that didn't sit well with his son and some of these other people that he was doing drugs with. On the other hand, we know so many situations where people do just walk off. And maybe it did seem that Robert was, going through some things before he disappeared. Maybe he was stressed or depressed about, his son and the problems his son was having. At the time, Robert's wife was on a trip, and she came back. Of course, he was gone. So, I could be up in the air, but it's hard not to think that the son did something to his father, that he took off. Maybe the son went somewhere, ran into those guys. They came back to the house, and they, took, the Robert away and did something to him. Very possible scenario. But once again, this isn't a case. I don't know any more about it than any of you do. Now, on the cases that I've covered for Unfound, obviously those are cases that I can talk about with a lot of knowledge and more knowledge than most people. But on these ones that I haven't covered and just kind of know the general facts like a lot of you do, I think in Robert Hoagland's case, I think I have to be more open-minded to some different possibilities, in contrast to Batty Adkins' case, where it seems clear-cut, but without knowing the behind-the-scenes story, you can never be sure. Karen asks me, Ed, how do you choose cases to cover? Do you initiate contact with guests, or do they come to you? Karen, it works both ways. My assistant Emily is always out there looking for people to talk to. And then there are families who hear about the program and contact us. All right. So I wouldn't say that we necessarily choose the cases to cover. We're always looking for people to talk to. And so we don't really choose them. They choose us. If we contact somebody, they choose to talk to us. That's how an episode gets done. If we contact somebody, say we see a Facebook page or a website or something like that, and then they choose, we contact, they get back to us. Yes, we don't want to do an interview. They choose to be on the program. We don't select them. I prefer to think that they choose to be on Unfound. They look up the program. They get to know what I do. We do a lot of talking. I explain to them how the case is going to be covered, what I do, my process. Emily talks to them about that as well. And then they choose to be on the program. It's not like we're nitpicking and we're necessarily particular and we're only looking for particular type of cases. We're not. So we don't really choose the cases. We just kind of start looking for people to talk to, and then some people get back to us and some people don't. That's how it works. If it hasn't been asked before, what is in the door? This door goes out into the rest of my parents' condo. This one over here, Layla. And that is a closet right there. Hey, Jeremiah, what's going on? And those are a bunch of, Layla, those are a bunch of pins that my parents have collected over the years. From vacation spots, from schools, from monuments, from, national parks, or, tourist attractions. Those are all pins on that over there. So those are pins into like some sort of cardboard hanging on the back of that door. That's what I think. I've been asked that question before. I know it's really weird. You're like, what is that? It's a bunch of pins. That's what it is. So let's ask. Let me answer another question tonight. And Angel, is she in here? I don't know. You're Jasmine. You're welcome. You're welcome for responding to your question. Thank you. Angel asked me about the Springfield 3, if I would be open to covering that. I'm open to covering just about any case. I've said only maybe there are just a couple that I would stay away from just because of the craziness of them, and I'd like to stay out of that. Hey, Full Metal, what's going on? There's maybe a couple that I would have to consider not covering just because of everything that, and you've heard me talk about, for maybe some people, if you haven't been, that you're just maybe watching for the first time on YouTube, like the Morimura case. That has such a cult around it, very divisive factions all over the place. I would really have to think long and hard before I got into that because, that'd be jumping like into the middle of a forest fire or something like that. You can try to help the Murrays, and I think I'd like to, but I also know there is so much trolling and everything that goes on with that case that, is it worth my wow? Would all of that just cover up the good work that would be done on that case? That would be something that I would have to weigh. So, but as far as the Springfield 3, I'm up for, like I said, just about covering any case, and I was this close to covering the Springfield 3. This close. There was a guy that I've gotten to know well. He knew I knew a guy, type of cliche, that seemed to be maybe have some inside information or something about the case. And the guy that I knew well was trying to arrange me talking to this guy. And then this guy said, "Nah, I don't want to do it." So I don't know what was going on there. It was not a family member. I can tell you that. It was not a family member of the women who disappeared. It was not that. But I would certainly be open to that. That's once again one of those cases that have been covered so much that I don't know if, would run into anything new. Maybe. But, my attitude has always been that, once again, I don't necessarily turn down anybody, but I take a lot of pride in covering a lot of cases that a lot of you haven't heard about. Judith Emke, that was a case, a lot of information that we covered. It was a 3-hour interview. I'm sure most of you had never heard about that case until Unfound covered it, and that's fine. I'm not saying you should, but there are all of these other cases with all this information. There's family members out there looking for answers. They can't get any news media because the case is so old, on and on and on, the reasons that they can't get the attention that they need. And that's why Unfound exists. And that's why a lot of times you're going to hear about cases you've never heard before. And I think Judith Emke's probably is a great example of, there are so many cases out there that are interesting that people should take an interest in, with a lot of interesting facts, different ways that it can go. And then people don't know about them because it seems like so many shows out there just want to keep covering the same 20 disappearances over and over and over. And I don't do that. That's not my attitude. That's not Emily's attitude. That's not a lot of other people who help me behind the scenes. That's not their attitudes either. I love finding these cases and talking to these people who, haven't gotten any attention. And the case is 20 years old and they just feel so desperate. I love trying to help those people out. But if one of the family members from the Springfield 3 contacts me, I will give them all the time in the world. So there you go. Carrie says there is a rumor Springfield 3 is connected to Angela Hammond from Clinton, Missouri. Similar circumstances. Carrie, I have no idea. I really don't do. Stephanie says don't do it regarding Mara Murray. Stephanie, yeah, then you know what I mean. Jane Doe, what's going on? Good to see you. Media guy, the Mara Murray case is like one of the most well-known cases ever. Yeah, I know. And Carrie says I'm guessing the unknown case is the one that need coverage. Yes. I want to try to help these people out. I guess you don't realize, once again, this is trying, I hope when I do this program, this live show, that I try to give you behind the scenes type of things. And I'm telling you for sure, there's no doubt in my mind that many TV shows and podcasters, they gauge what they're going to cover depending on how popular they think the topic is. The disappearance is, the mystery is, the conspiracy is, on and on and on. Okay, because they're so desperate for downloads and shares and likes and followers and everything else. That's why that happens. That's why it seems like so many of these cases get covered over and like Mara Murray, like Brandon Lawson, right? There's two different Brandons. Brandon Lawson, Jennifer Kesse, though, those ones that we are familiar, at least when it comes to disappearances. That's why they get covered, because those people that host those shows know if they cover that case, it's going to get a lot of attention. It's just not, I just don't care about that. I just don't. And I'm not here to be self-righteous or anything else, but that's just not where my interest lies. It's just not. I love discovering new things. I love finding new people. I love meeting new people. I love bringing new things to you. And, that's why, once again, you hear a lot of the cases that you just have, these people have, a lot of them have never done an in-depth interview with anybody ever. And these cases are, 20, 30 years old. We're not going to talk about Kay Holt, not going to talk about Jennifer Kesse tonight, unfortunately. Just not enough time. I've talked about her before, but I've talked about it. And as Cherie says, my attitude, and I said this early on, and maybe I don't mention enough these days, I mentioned early on in Unfound's existence, every case deserves the same amount of attention, and that attention should be a lot. Okay? These people are all equal. I don't care if they're into drugs. I don't care if they were prostitutes. I don't care what, gang members. I don't care. They're all equal. If they're criminals or something, then they should have been put in jail and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But if they're a disappearance, they should all be treated the same. And they should all get the same amount of attention. And that means you have to put your own concerns as a host about whether, you're going to meet your goals of downloads and subscribers. You have to put that stuff to the side. It's just the way it is. I don't know how else to put it. So Springfield 3, I would love to talk to somebody in the family, and then maybe we might get together with something. And anybody knows anybody who is in one of their families, love to talk to them. We'll see what else. I'd love to see what I can do. Now, you should know that you're probably wondering, if you follow Unfound very closely, that right now Friday's episode is up in the air. Here's what has happened in the last few days. First of all, I think I had an interview lined up, and the woman unfortunately came down with a kidney stone. Okay, so I'm not going to interview anybody who is in pain, isn't on the top of their game, where they're comfortable, they're ready to talk. It's a good case, as I think all of them are. It's one that needs covered. It's a relatively new case, but she has come down with a kidney stone, and she's recovering. So I should say, if we get it done tomorrow, then I think I'll be able to put out an episode on Friday. If not, there's probably not going to be one. However, I also had a backup person I thought I was going to get to interview, but this person lost their internet and all their phone and everything because of some work, or maybe it was the weather or something. She lives out kind of in the sticks, and she lost all of her communication. So I fell out of communication with her for about 4 days, and that kind of put us back. So I had two lined up, but just bad luck. And I think on top of it is that this is still the effect of what happened, with my mother passing away at the end of November. Of course, I did not do anything for those 2 weeks. I didn't do any Unfound work for 2 weeks. And then you get into the holiday season, and people, first of all, they're hard to reach. Second of all, these interviews are difficult enough to do already. And then the holidays even makes it worse. So all of these shows, these episodes that have come out since then, Stephen Adams, I talked to Darlene well before November. That's how long that goes back. So any of these, recent cases, that I've covered, they all, Stephen Adams, Ashley Summers, Bonnie and Jeremy Dagus, and Judith Emke, that was all work I did before my mother passed away. And so, once again, I was hoping I could, work ahead before the holidays. Didn't get to do that because of what happened. So still working, still scrambling a little bit, you may say, but I've done a lot of interviews and I've done a lot of conversations the last week. So I think that after we get through this little lull, I may even be able to put out 2 episodes in a week. We'll just have to see. So still Friday's episode, a little bit up in the air. And I do apologize for that. Just some things that are completely beyond my control, really. Media guy says, I have my own conclusion on what happened to Mara Murray. I think a lot of people pushed it way too much. I agree. Media says, that's why I like your shows, Ed. Your cases are almost unheard of from the vault, so to speak. I love digging in. Maybe it's like me with my, as all of you know, as some of you know, I'm a big Iron Maiden fan. They're my favorite band. Some of my favorite songs by them are the ones that you don't hear on the radio all the time, that they don't even play in concert. It's kind of just the way I am, so maybe that's reflected in the cases that that we try to cover as well. Maybe. Joyce says she cries on holidays. Joyce, I understand. Yeah. So that's what's going on for Friday. I will continue to keep you updated. Once again, if I can get an interview with one of these 2 done tomorrow, then I'll be able to put a Friday's episode, even if I have to work all night tomorrow night. That's fine. If not, I just have to apologize. It just wasn't meant to be this week. One more thing. We got the newsletter. I think another newsletter will be out before you see me again next week. So be looking for that. And if you don't think that you are on the newsletter list, please email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and I will make sure that you get on the list and you'll get the newsletter coming out next week for January of 2019. So I've answered some questions, went through some intro stuff. I want to talk about, I posted it in the group, this murder of Christy Myrack, M-I-R-A-C-K. This is a case from Pennsylvania that she was raped and murdered in 1992. Well, once again, through DNA, something that, in true crime had to be the big story of 2018, along with hand in hand with the original Night Stalker being caught, but is the use of DNA, using these private DNA companies to solve crimes. I think that was, if we could have a true crime topic of the year, that would certainly have been it. Like Time has their person of the year, and, different media publications do that. For true crime, I think the big story would be the joining of private DNA companies with crime solving was the big topic in 2018. Well, here's another one. Christy Myrack, she was raped and murdered. It was a case that was completely cold until Raymond Rowe, one of his distant cousins or somebody, used that one of those DNA companies to find out their ancestry, and it hit on Raymond Rowe, and he is now in custody. He is a DJ, and he is in custody right now, and because he did leave DNA behind when he raped and murdered Christy back in 1992 in her apartment or condo, whatever it was. She lived by herself. Now, you're probably saying, well, there's a reason you're bringing it up because there's been a lot of stories like this. Well, what caught my eye about this particular case, and I think that it's starting to catch my eye more and more, is what these DNA, this new thing that happened in DNA with private companies and law enforcement getting together, you could say, is how many of these cases are stranger on stranger crime. We are finding out that maybe stranger on, and meaning the people didn't know each other beforehand. That, because in the case of Christy and Raymond, the police, at least to this point, have not been able to make any connection. Raymond Rowe was never a suspect back in 1992. Name has never come up until they matched his DNA. He didn't live next door. They didn't work together. They didn't date, as far as the police knows. This was something where it seems that he just went by her place, went in, and raped and killed her. And this is not if you go back and look at maybe some of the cases that I've already talked about regarding this, you're going to see most of these are stranger on stranger crime. And that's a little scary. But once you know that, I think then you can understand why these cases were unsolved. That it wasn't an easy fix. I'm sure when Christy was murdered, the cops went to her ex-boyfriend, co-workers, everybody else, and everybody's like, well, we have no idea. They couldn't pin it on anybody. Why? We now know why. Because Raymond Rowe, they didn't even know he existed. I'm not even sure he has a criminal record since 1992. I don't know. But that is interesting. And I'm wondering, as this continues, as more and more DNA is used, and I think that eventually we're going to run into a constitutional issue regarding all this. But as long as it's still constitutional in the United States, that I think we're going to find out a lot of these cases that are solved this way are stranger on stranger crime. That it's going to just be the guy was just out, just happened to see a woman by herself, raped her, murdered her, went on his way, and that was the reason it went unsolved. The case went unsolved for so long. Now, what does that mean for us? What it means for us as people, like myself, who are, the number one concern is missing persons, is that I'm going to probably have to start opening my mind up to the idea that some of these people, more than maybe I realize right at this second, maybe some of these people were snatched up by a stranger. Maybe some of these women were snatched up by a stranger. Maybe some of these guys were murdered by a stranger and then taken away and buried somewhere. Instead of always, even though that we know that relationships, as far as the statistics go, relationships are the number one cause of disappearances. But maybe that percentage that is stranger on stranger, guy running into woman, maybe sometimes woman running into man, but guy running into woman, guy running into man, that, for the first time, maybe that's a higher percentage than we give it credit for. I think that that's what all of this DNA stuff is showing. At least that's what I'm getting out of it. Kat says, totally love this podcast. Kat, thank you. Christina, thanks for tuning in tonight. Angel says, figured out I have to be on desktop mode on my phone to comment. Well, Angel, I'm glad you figured that out. That's great. Susan says, I've wondered if he stalked her. Susan, whether Raymond stalked Christy, I think that's a very good possibility. But did she know that? Did she know that he was following her? We don't know that. I don't know if we'll ever know that. What I think I know is that if Christy had mentioned to any of her friends that she was being stalked by some guy named Raymond, that this guy would have been questioned back in 1992, even if the technology of the day wouldn't have been able to match his DNA and everything. They would have talked to him. I don't think this guy was ever on their radar at any time. So if he was stalking her, she didn't seem to mention it to anybody. So I don't know. Don't know. So that's, Susan, it's very possible that he was watching her, but I'm guessing she didn't know it. Angel says, Ed, on Springfield 3, reporter Kathy Baird would be a good contact person. She'd be able to contact Janet McCall. Okay. I'll talk to Emily about it and we'll see what we can do. Cherie says, I think that was the trend 20, 30 years ago, but that seems to have changed recently. What trend are you talking about, Cherie? Maybe you could be a little more specific on that. Media guy, didn't they say the Springfield 3 were buried under some hospital or parking garage? Media guy, I really don't know. Michelle said they frequented the same social club, so I think he stalked her under her nose. Michelle, it's very possible. I mean, they live in the same area, so I guess it's possible that they ran into each other in passing at a grocery store, at a club, at a bar. But I really don't think this guy was ever on their radar at all, to having done this. So what we're supposed to be getting out of this, I think stranger on stranger crime might be a little more common than we are giving it credit for right now. I think that's what this DNA stuff is showing us. And that's something that I hope to put in my talks that I hope to do this year on college campuses about DNA and stranger on stranger crime. I would hope to be able to do that. Yeah, Angel said he was actually a well-known DJ in the area. Yeah, Angel, yes, I know. Yeah. Heather says, I think he drove by our apartments on the way to work. I think that's also true. Right. So the next thing I want to talk about is this killer that was finally caught in California. This was a case that takes us back to June of 2018. This is a guy, his name is Tristan Beaudet, Beaudett. This is the guy that was camping with his two daughters in the Calabasas / Malibu area, and then somebody shot him to death. Well, it seems that shooting has been solved, and they caught the guy. His name is Anthony Rada. Now, if you'll remember, I think I even talked about this during this show when it was on Facebook last summer. And I think we threw around the idea, could Tristan's wife had something to do with this, being that he was murdered, but the daughters weren't. That's always going to make you a little suspicious. That makes sense. But it seems in this case, she has nothing to do with this. In fact, this Anthony Rada guy was a survivalist. I think he was homeless, but he was kind of staking out that area. And Tristan Beaudet is not the only guy this Anthony Rada shot. Tristan just happens to be the only one he murdered. And Anthony's actually been in custody, I read, since October of 2018. But they are saying that his spree started in November of 2016. So he'd been at it for almost 2 years before he shot Tristan. So it seems like the suspicion that the wife, that didn't pan out. But this Anthony Rada, I mean, he was really, and I think they've now connected to most of those violent crimes and things, and theft, vandalism, etc., that has occurred in that area. I think they've been able to connect most of it to him. It was one guy, this Anthony Rada, that was doing all of it, including the murder of Tristan Beaudet. Now, why? I don't know. Is he doing this? Is he not? Is he crazy? Does he have some sort of agenda, environmentalist agenda maybe, or nature agenda, or I don't know. I don't know, but it does sound like he was a kook, and he was trying to hurt people, and in this case, he murdered somebody. Cherie says, Oh, stranger on, you'd say it's a lot less common now than it was, Sheree. That may be. That's what you're saying there. Okay. Okay. Um, Jasmine says she heard the same thing about the Springfield 3 where they were buried. Kat's asked me, are you always live on Hump Day? If so, I will join. What time? Kat, I have been doing this live show. It was originally on Facebook, but this is the second show on YouTube. I do this show every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern time. And it will be on YouTube for the foreseeable future and won't be anywhere else. Yes, this is the only live show that I do. Of course, the podcast that I do is pre-recorded. But this is the only live show I do on Wednesday nights where the usual format is little intros you've heard. We cover a little business, and then I talk about the episode that is going to be out this coming Friday. And I do, we just talk about general true crime theory and some news and things like that. But yes, I've been doing this since October 2017, the live show. Kathy Baird is actually one who paid to have the garage check with ground penetrating sonar. Okay. Well, thank you, Kat. Thanks for joining. Yes, thank you for finding Unfound. I appreciate it. So the killer's been caught, and we talked about Christy Myrick. Let's take another question. We're going to get off true crime for a little bit. Diane asked me, she typed this into the group. She asked me the first concert that I ever went to. I am very proud to say that the first concert that I ever went to, I think it was May of 2000 or May of 1983, maybe. Maybe 1984. I'm thinking it was 83. I'd have to go back. I'd probably go back and check this. I went to see Lionel Richie, and it was on the all night long. It was that tour with Lionel Richie, and the opening act, if you can believe it, was Tina Turner. And this was before she had the whole private dancer. Remember, her career kind of went down here for a while. Well, she was just coming back, and she was opening for him. And it was before Private Dancer came out. Tina Turner opening for Lionel Richie. I went with Brad Laddick, who is on my friends list on Facebook. You can find him. I went with him and his parents to see Lionel Richie and Tina Turner at the Civic Arena, which isn't even there anymore, in Pittsburgh. That's where the Penguins used to play. I think it was May of 1983. I think it was that year. I'm sure that was the first concert that I went to. I missed some things here. Cindy asked me, do I keep the comments off on all your posts? Cindy, I do. It's kind of just depends, but the reason I do that is because if I let the comments open, then I know how many trolls are going to be there, and I don't have the time to monitor it. Because I see how many YouTube videos out there gets all sort of trolling, especially when you're doing true crime and everything else. So I don't want, because I don't have the time to manage it and keep an eye on all the comments, and you can't protect it or anything like that. I do keep the comments off. I know that myself and my business manager have had some talks about that. But what's most important to me, the comments are great, but what's the most important to me is people are listening to it and, generating opinions and things like that. And that's why I have the discussion group on Facebook, which is protected, where I can keep the trolls out and everything's, very mature and adult-like, instead of just getting people like on YouTube where they can just come in. They don't even listen to the case. They can say anything they want. That's why I keep the comments off there. That's a good question, though. First concert was Bon Jovi. Jealous. I've never seen Bon Jovi in concert. Love Lionel Richie. Def Leppard, 1996. That's interesting. Love Def Leppard. I've seen them twice. Rolling Stones and The Who, probably 1981. Wow, that's spectacular, Michelle. Layla, The Police Synchronicity Tour, spectacular. Layla, love it. Stephanie says, it was 83 Madness, Davey Bowie and the Go-Go's. That's interesting. Madness, our house in the middle of our street. Yeah, I know them. One hit wonders, kind of. Cindy, okay, you're welcome, Cindy. Emily says, I keep forgetting about Unfound going to YouTube. I was waiting on the notification you went live. Emily, come on, assistant Emily. Yeah, we're on YouTube now. That's all right. Cherie says, I saw Bon Jovi once again. Never saw them. Stacy, Guns N' Roses. Never saw them either. Okay, so that was my first concept. Now, Nicole asked me, and she's kind of new, and I know that I've answered this question before, so everybody bear with me. But she stays up till 2 in the morning to watch this in, I think, Europe or somewhere like that. She's like 5 hours ahead, so it's starting like 2 in the morning. But I got to answer a question. She asked me a variety of questions, but I picked this one out. Do I listen to other podcasts? Nicole, the easy answer is no. And I know that makes me sound like a snob or something like that. The truth is that I really don't have the time. And when I'm not doing Unfound stuff, I'm doing Unfound stuff 95% of the time. That's an exaggeration, but it feels like it. I just want to really just disconnect from true crime and missing persons. Okay, for a little bit. So I don't have time to listen to other shows. I'm not saying that I don't like them. Truthfully, I do know a lot about the other podcasts and true crime podcasts that are out there, but I just I just kind of do my thing. I'm just a guy who believes in just keeping his eyes on his own work. All right. I don't get caught up in what other people are doing. I know what they're doing because you can't avoid it. If you're doing this, you know what other people are doing. But I wouldn't say I go out of my way to find out. But I just like working on my own stuff. I like working on my cases. I like working with my assistant Emily. I like working with other people behind the scenes, like Cherie, who helps me. I like working with them on just making Unfound better. And when I'm not doing that, what do I do? Play disc golf. I watch disc golf tournaments on YouTube. I watch, Star Trek reruns. I work out. I, do other things, and I listen to music. I listen to Iron Maiden and a lot of other groups from like the 80s. And I don't listen to too many. I like listening to like World War II stuff. I watch a lot of like gun videos and things. When I'm not doing Unfound, I usually don't do anything that has anything to do with true crime. So there you go. But I hope that answers your. I know that other hosts probably are different. But I think it's because a lot of these other hosts know each other. They've been to some convention together, so they feel a responsibility. We're friends. I got to listen to my friend's podcast, and I get that. The truth is, I don't really know any other podcast hosts. I don't know them well. I've talked to a couple of them. I had a talk with Payne Lindsay about 2 years ago. I kind of know the guys from Generation Y, but I haven't talked to them in a while. I know a couple other hosts, but I've never met any of them in person. So I just try to keep my own work, and trust me, I have enough work to do. Ann says Neil Diamond. That's 1971. That's spectacular, Ann. Sue says Black Sabbath. Sue, I'd be interested. Sue, what year, if I can ask, what year did you see Black Sabbath? Who was the? Yeah, Our House by Ed Dentzel, right? I'd be interested to know what year you saw Black Sabbath, Sue. Um, love Black Sabbath. Neil says listen to Maiden. There you go, Neil. There you go. Okay. So, Nicole, to answer your question, the general answer is no. I'm not going to say I've never heard any other podcasts. I've listened to a few episodes just to get an idea what other people are doing. But if there's ever a sign that I don't listen to other podcasts, it's how, Unfound is set up. I'm one of the rare shows that does interviews. I guess, of course, The Vanish does as well. A couple other ones do. But it's an interview show, which is unique. Most of these other programs are like an hour at the most. Here I am putting out 3-hour episodes. Unfound just is, just is in its own little niche over here, mainly because I didn't listen to a lot of other true crime podcasts before I started it. I just said, well, this is the way I wanted to do it, and that's it. So there you go. I do a lot of things that you should know that podcast experts say you shouldn't do. I do a lot of them. That's the way it is. Sue, you saw him in 1983. So Ozzy wasn't the singer then. Would that have been Ronnie James Dio then? With Black Sabbath, Sue? Is that who was singing for them then? That's interesting to me. Okay. Cat says Sue. He does not have. I don't know what that means, Cat, but that's funny. Ian Gillan was the singer of Black Sabbath when you saw him, right? Is that right? From Deep Purple. That's interesting, right? I do remember that. Black Sabbath has so many different singers, and once Ozzy left, they had so many. Saw them with Izzy and Dio. So Ronnie James Dio was there, but he was with his own band. Okay, I got it. See, I know my heavy metal at least a little bit. Okay, let me cover one more news item. And this is kind of an update, although it's not really an update. I'm just going to revisit it. If you remember, 4 months ago, I talked about this girl, Kelsey Quell. If the name does not sound familiar to you, she was a young woman who was driving to work in Atlanta, Georgia, the morning. I think it was in October. And she was shot in the head while driving. And they actually have a video of her car, kind of zooming and veering off. And they cut off the video right before she hits into another car. Unfortunately, she was murdered. Luckily, the car that she hit, nobody got killed. I want you to know that case is still unsolved. It's something that I'm kind of going back to every couple of weeks to see. And that's a case that is still unsolved. Not sure what happened that morning. They had a couple cars that they were looking for that were on the street at the same time. I don't know if the police have tracked them down or anything. But I said at the time, and I'm going to say it again, there is a case in the Tampa area from several years ago that is very similar, where a guy was driving a pickup truck in broad daylight on the 75 near Tampa. He was shot in his truck. Truck veered off, went into the median. He was dead, and it's been years. That case is still unsolved as well. And I'm certainly hoping that this does get solved. It's tough. I mean, how you go about trying to figure out what happened here is beyond me. It surely was not an accident. It wasn't somebody who I don't think that was just sitting in their house and accidentally shot a gun off and hit her and then went through a wall and hit her out in the street. I think this is something that was targeted. I don't know if she cut somebody off, or maybe it was some ex-boyfriend that was stalking him. To hit somebody in the head and kill them in a car, from car to car, is very, as a guy who shoots guns, you just standing, still and hitting a target that is also standing still is difficult enough. We try shooting from car to car and they're moving at different speeds, and you're trying to hit somebody. I mean, that's a heck of a shot. So I'm guessing that it was luck, but somebody was definitely trying to shoot at her for whatever reason. But that's a case that's not solved. You can look it up. It's Kelsey Quayle, Quayle, from Atlanta a few months ago. I think it was in October. So, I would urge you all to maybe keep an eye on that case as well. Sue says Izzy Borden was actually the best of those three bands. Okay. Katrina, I've not seen Bohemian Rhapsody. I love Queen. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Queen fan, but I like some of their music, that I've not seen it. Kat says you do not have all that stuff all the other pods have. You are untainted, as Sue said. Okay. Yeah, there's no ads on Unfound, and that's the way it's going to stay. I mean, that's another thing that, a lot of people, podcast experts will tell you, well, you got to get ads and you got to do this. And it's, I tend to use that line that Jack Black uses in School of Rock, which is one of my favorite movies. Speaking of music, School of Rock is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't even have kids, but being that he's teaching kids rock and roll and teaching them how to play instruments and putting a band together, I don't think that's done enough with kids these days. I think that music and learning to play an instrument, I don't care if it's a guitar or a horn or whatever, drums, I think that can enrich a child's life so much, even though the practicing sucks. It can enrich their lives so much, and I think that's why I also like the movie. It's a very good PG, good kid movie, but it's great. The music and everything is spectacular. But he says in there, don't get in my way because I got vision up the butt. That's kind of the way I am. It just is. I have a vision on what I want the program to be, and I'm just going to do it. And I really don't care what other people are doing. I guess to continue the music analogy, that something, maybe it's the reason I like Iron Maiden so much. They were a band that their average length of a song is like 6 minutes, whereas your average, song of many other bands is like 3 minutes or 3.5. They never got played on the radio. They're talking about, they're making Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, which is, of course, a poem they put into music, and they use all sorts of, weird imagery and everything. And then the guys themselves are very unique. Of course, Bruce Dickinson is a commercial airline pilot and everything. They've always kind of done things their own way. And here they are. They're still together like almost 40 years later, all 6 of them. And that's the way I see Unfound. I'm not saying I'm as popular as Iron Maiden. It's not. But, with Steve Harris, who started that group, he had a vision on what he wanted the band to be. And it didn't matter if they weren't going to get played on the radio or the songs were going to be 6 or 7 minutes long and all these other things. Didn't matter. He had a vision. He went for it. That's just the kind of way I am. Yeah, Carrie, I'm thinking Kelsey Quayle's also ultimate wrong place, wrong time. Maybe. I don't know if we'll ever know. If they solve it, I guess we'll know. Kat, sure, you want to give me some Alabama cases? Okay, great. Katrina says, could it have been road rage for Kelsey Quayle? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that would have to be your number one choice. Cherie says, and as a woman who shoots, damn near impossible. Yeah. Anybody who's going to the gun range with a pistol, you put the target out there 20 feet, you can hit it, but it's only 20 feet and you're standing still, the target's 20. You get it out to 30 feet, 40 feet. It's tough. And then you put everything moving, car moving, through glass, everything. Tough shot. Tough. Music and true crime, perfect guy. Oh, Sue, now quit it. Yeah. Nisa says, hello, Ed. Hello, everyone. Just listening to Jason Jokowski episode again. Okay, great. Katrina says, my kids learned to love 80s music, unfortunately, from Grand Theft Audio. Oh, yeah, I've never, I'm not a video guy. I'm not, did I just say that? I'm not a video game guy. Just never gone into it, but I do know what Grand Theft Auto is. Last question. Heather, I don't know if Heather's in here or not, but this is tough. This is probably a tough question for me. She wanted my thoughts on R. Kelly and what's going on there. Well, Marcus just happens to ask me, ever dabbled in politics, Ed? That is a big no comment. Actually, I have, but I'm not going to talk about it here. Heather asked me about R. Kelly and what I think about what's going on. I'll have you know, I guess there was a documentary out that, and I have not watched it. I don't know much about it. Here's what I think I know about R. Kelly, and maybe there's a bigger picture issue here about R. Kelly in particular. I'm couldn't even name you one of his songs. Okay, I'm not saying, I do get into some hip hop and R&B and everything. He's just never an artist that that I've gotten into. But it seems to me he's had allegations against him for years, going back to the 1990s, about him having sex with underage girls and things. And I don't know exactly everything, if he ever went to jail for any of that. I don't know if he's on a sex offender list. I don't know. Okay. That's first of all. I think that, I don't know where Heather wanted me to go with this question, but I do find it troubling that with all of the allegations against him for many years, I'm going to say it's been going on 20 years now, that people go to his concerts. I understand if somebody has the radio on and R. Kelly comes on and they listen to the song, they like his music, everything else, okay? But when people still go to see him in concert and pay good money to see him, a guy who has all these charges against him, some of I think were in which he's been found guilty, and all of this stuff that has been around him, that's where I think that I would personally draw the line. Now, I'm not going to say that all of the musicians or actors, anywhere you want to go with this, any kind of entertainment, nobody's perfect. We know that a lot of the actors that we like, actresses, musicians, they've been into drugs. They have maybe, domestic violence charges against them and things. And it's all horrible, all horrible. But I think, on the other hand, that if it's something in R. Kelly's case where it's like underaged, and whether he's locked some women up or whatever he did with them, I think that is taking it, to such a different level that, if I being that I just mentioned Iron Maiden, if I were to find out that's one of the guys in Iron Maiden, Bruce Willis, Bruce Dickinson, Steve Harris, Dave Murray, Adrian Smith, Nico McBrain, Yannick Gears, I can name all 6 of them. If I were to find out one of them did the things that R. Kelly did, I would never go to one of their concerts again. I might listen to their music, but I would make sure that none of my money ever went to them again. And I think in Iron Maiden's case, if one of their guys was caught doing that, he'd be out of the band. In fact, I think that's what AC/DC did to their drummer, Phil Rudd. It's just weird. I just don't understand that that a guy or a woman, whatever, have had these charges against them for years and years and years. I can understand liking the music and being able to separate the music from the person. And just no different than if there's some actor who was in a movie years ago, then it comes out that he did things like this. You can still like his performance. You can still like the movie. You can like the directing and everything else. But on the other hand, not support that person. I can understand that. That people do that is something that I can't relate to. Let's see what some of you are saying about this. No, Marcus says, I was just wondering, need for him to get any political. Don't worry, I'm not going to get into politics here. No, that not going to do it. No jail, wondering about the allegations he is holding women as slaves. Cherie, a message was retracted. Okay. Angel says R. Kelly had allegations way back when he played basketball. Can't remember which team he played for. I don't know anything about that. Paying to see pedophile is unthinkable. These women need to go to DA, not to Netflix. Cherie, I agree. Angel, well, look at Michael Jackson's allegations. There's still many people paid to see him. I agree with that. But even in Michael Jackson's case, I don't think it's as obvious and as blatant as it was in R. Kelly's case. I would never get into an argument with somebody whether Michael Jackson was a pedophile or not. And I realize that there are rich people, that there are scammers all the time coming after rich people and everything else. And a lot of these people, these famous people, did nothing. I can understand the argument regarding Michael Jackson. And I can understand if some people say, I don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. Even though I know he's deceased for, years now. With R. Kelly, I don't hear anybody out there saying that he didn't do any of this stuff. Once again, as much as I know about it, just having it pop up in the news once in a while. But I'm 48 years old. I remember 20 years ago there was this stuff going on. So, don't know. Carrie says money is how he gets out of trouble, and some bands have no morals. Nicole says, can you send private messages for some cases? Absolutely, Nicole. Absolutely. Just send them to me on Messenger through unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. We'll take a look at them. Stephanie says celebrities and musicians get a free pass. Sometimes. Doesn't sound like Kevin Spacey's going to get a free pass. It seems like he did for a while, but things, I hope things do change. I hope they do. But I think with R. Kelly, it's much more blatant than, has anybody over the last 20 years had more allegations of underage sex and more than he has? I don't think. But still, people want to see him. They want to spend good money to see him, and download his music on iTunes and pay for it and everything. I don't get it. And it's not a music thing because there are some versions in his genre of music that I like. It's not against the music. It's against him. Dottie says it seems like rich and famous people get off charges way too much. Well, that's true, but I think R. Kelly's case is an extreme one of somebody like that. Angel, Pete Townsend of The Who also had allegations, yes, but the way I understand that is, I've read about that, and he was reading it. He was doing research on it. I don't know if there's ever been any kids young women or boys who have come forward and said Pete Townsend, raped them, or Pete Townsend was marketing and porn. I think that the police went and talked to him about it. I know there were a lot of allegations, but I don't really know if they went anywhere. Cherie says Bill Cosby. Yeah, Bill Cosby one time was the biggest TV star in the United States. And at the time, he was obviously, I don't know if all those women are telling the truth, but I believe a large majority of them are. And he was knocking out women and having sex with them. No. So, so I get that, I think that you are allowed to like the music that you want. Okay, I think that's part of living in a free society. But when you go out of your way to spend money on seeing artists, musicians, actors, whoever, who have had really, really, like I said, drugs and things, I think that's different. When it comes to harming young people, innocent people and everything, that's totally something different. Totally different. Kat, not touching that comment. Please, no politics on the post, please. Cherie says, I love Kevin Spacey. Yeah, he's a great actor. But I think he's going to jail. Sue says, not even hardest hip-hop artists won't play with. Kelly says a lot. With Kelly's cash, he still was found guilty. Just saying, like, he's an animal. So, Heather, I don't know if that answered your question well or not. It's tough. It's tough. It just depends on how particular you want to be. I'm not here to bring up politics, but if you are of a particular political persuasion and you want to go see a movie, but then you find out that there's some actor or actress in it that doesn't agree with your politics, do you go? And that can cut either way, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever. Do you go? Where, and I just, I don't think like that. When it comes to those things where people just think differently than I do, I can live with that. I can live with that. I have no problem with that. But when it comes to actual actions and harming people, in my world, that's just a little different. And that's where I have to start drawing the line. So I think that's, unfortunately, I don't have a case to talk about this week, but that's why I was able to take some more questions and do a little more talking to all of you. But that's all I have for tonight. We've been going for 75 minutes. Wow. Time flies. Time just flies. So what do we do? Talked about how the viewership for this show is like up double now that we moved to YouTube. I hope that continues. We talked about the Judith Emke poll where most of you seem to think that Daryl did it. Told you about all the t-shirts that I was finally able to update for all of the guests. Some of them had posted pictures on Facebook in the group. I hope you saw those. Newsletter, be looking for that within the next week. Friday's episode, as I've said, is still up in the air. I talked about the Patreon blog. If you are not a member, all you have to do is sign up for as low as $2 a month. Maybe you want to give more, and if you do, you get a few more things. To see my deeper insights and opinions on the cases that Unfound covers, that blog comes out shortly after the episodes come out every Friday. Talked a little bit about the update on Kelsey Quell, the woman who was shot in her car and died. Talked about another DNA solving another cold case out of Pennsylvania, Christy Myrick, and how that could mean, a little bit of a different attitude towards stranger on stranger crime. We talked about the killer being caught in California, the guy who murdered Tristan Bodette back in last summer. It's a case that's now solved. And then I took a bunch of questions from all of you, and we had some good discussion tonight. I loved it. Heather, you got it. Okay, you're welcome. I hope that, once again, I didn't watch the documentary, so I can't give you any opinion on that. It just seems to me that R. Kelly has been a bad guy for a long time, and people keeps going to see him and everything else. I don't know. You're welcome. So there you go. Carlos, have you paid your taxes to Elvis Travels? I don't even know what that means. Okay. I don't even know what that, Carlos, means. Have you paid your taxes to Elvis Travels? That's funny. Well, I'm going. Favorite time of the week. Thanks to all of you for tuning in tonight. I hope to be able to get an episode out for Friday. We'll know tomorrow. Good night.